his hand in the garbage. He took out the picture. He put it in his wallet. He said, I'm going to give you honor because you had disgrace. I'm going to hold you with me wherever I go. And Rev Avrohom always had that wallet for him. And ever since he put that picture of the tzaddik in his wallet was never empty. There was always extra money in the wallet. The wallet always had lots of cash. One day when he went to Columbus on a shechita trip to go do shechita in the slaughterhouse there, in the meat factory there, as he went, some guy at the hotel ushered and pickpocketed his wallet. And Avrohom said, I only lost around $200, but I lost something much more. And that was that great picture, that great, beautiful picture of that tzaddik. Oh, that I miss. Besides that it was a segula for more money in his pocket, it also was that respect, that why did he take away my special wallet? It turns out he was always the first one to care for others. But there was one time that there was a guy who was in Vietnam, who was an anti-Semite who hated Jews, who was the neighbor with Avrohom. Because after Avrohom moved from his house, which used to be next door to Yeshiva, he moved down the hill about half a mile away, where there was other kollel apartments and other Jews lived in that area. And there was one guy that was very bad natured, very mean man. And he used to threaten Avrohom's daughters and scare them and say, if you go out to school, I'm going to kill you with my gun. God forbid, chas v'shalom. But he was a very dangerous man, very wild character. And his son also used to threaten them. And he used to take their dolls away and tease them. And he would even stick the doll on the ground to scare them. But look, I took your doll away. It's our baby. Their doll's like their, to the little child, the doll's like their baby. And he would take it away. The son of this Vietnamese veteran who hated Jews took the dolls of my sisters, of Avrahom's daughters, and he shoved them in the ground. And he started saying, ha, 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 here, look, I'm putting the babies in the ground, burying the babies alive. And that was a way to haunt and terrorize and scare these little children. A little girl loves her doll like a little baby, her own child of her own. And here, this Sonny Israel, this Vietnamese American veteran who was in the war, hated Jews, and he would threaten them and say, you better not go to school or I'll hurt you. And basically, his son followed in his wicked ways. And his son took the dolls and he shoved it in the ground. And he said, ha, 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 look what I'm doing. So right then, if Avrohom was coming home from yeshiva, where he used to always learn, he would always make sure to review what the rabbi said, and he was coming home, from yeshiva, he saw his daughters crying, and he saw that as they were crying, there was this guy there, this tough, kid, I think his name was GM, and GM was the one who was haunting them and scaring them by putting their dolls on the ground. So right away, Avrohom gave a klala, gave a curse. He said, if you don't do teshuvah, if you don't stop bothering them, then you'll bury your father next week. And the kid didn't care. He just laughed at him. A week later, to the day, 7 days later, his father took a gun and committed suicide. He shot himself in the head. And a week later, the boy was burying his father. So don't start up with religious people. Now it turns out that Avrohom was, as much as he might have acted tough towards when he was in his young boy, when he was like 12 years old, the legend is that he killed a guy in Arab that was attacking Jewish people. Don't think it's chas v'shalom because Avrohom was a tough person. Avrohom loved Jews so much that he couldn't see that Jews were being threatened and persecuted by another guy. And just like Moshe Rabbeinu, he saw there was no people there, and he went and he stopped this terrorist from bothering Jewish people. One time when Sukkot came, Rev Avrohom was trying to get out a nail from the sukkah, but the nail wouldn't go. He's yanking. And as he's trying to yank the nail out of the sukkah, his little son says, here, I'll help you. Yeah, and he thought, I'll help you. A lot of kids think they're smarter than their fathers. So he's yanking, and all of a sudden his mind is trying to pull out the nail. The hammer goes smashing into the knee of Avrohom, and Avrohom fell to the ground in pain. He quickly went into the house, he put ice, he laid in bed, but he would never ever tell Maimon right away that it hurt him, because again, he didn't want to hurt his feelings. He always made sure to try to make people happy, and he had a very special quality. He was an Isha Sheruach Bo, a person that had a spirit in him, that he knew how to get along with every person. If it was a Rosh Yeshiva, he knew how to speak to him Pilpulim. If it was an Am Haaretz, he knew how to tell him stories. If it was a regular boy, he would ask him questions on Mishnayot. If it was an older bacher, he would ask him questions in Gemara. And like this, he always brought cheer and happiness to people. He'd always tell them a good joke once in a while. And one time someone came to him, and he said, Rev Avrohom, my son is very sick. He has hepatitis. Hepatitis is a terrible disease of the liver, where the person's liver stops cleaning the blood, and what happens is the person starts losing the white in his skin, his eyes turn yellow instead of white. And right then they called Rev Avrohom, and Rev Avrohom took a pigeon, and he shechted the pigeon on top of the person's stomach. And he said, Hashem should make this chicken have a kapara, that instead of you having to suffer from the disease, the chicken should. And right then, an amazing thing happened. They put the pigeon on top of the stomach, and the disease went out of the person into the chicken. He shechted the chicken, the person felt all better. The bird got the kapara instead of us. That's like korbanot. Sometimes, person does avirah, he's supposed to get punished, but he shechs an animal, and that gets a kapara for him. He sees the blood, it sends a chill up his throat, a mind of teshuvah, and he was saved. One time, Rev Avrahom's mother-in-law came, and with a terrible pain in her arm, she said she's really, really in pain, and she couldn't move her hand. She had arthritis. Arthritis is a terrible muscle disease, where they can't move their joints. Rev Avrohom told her, Chavivin Yisurim, it's good when a person suffers. It brings kapara for his sins. But she said, no, it's too hard. So Rev Avrohom put his hand over hers, and right away he took away the Yisurim. Her hands never hurt her anymore. It turns out, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Matal, wrote on the smicha letter that he wrote to Rev Avrohom, he said, Ashvi ha'eda tivcha bo. Lucky will be the community that chooses him as a rabbi. But you know what? Since he was a Sephardic man in an Ashkenaz community, he didn't feel comfortable leading them. He didn't have the traditions of the Ashkenazim. He didn't feel comfortable to be a teacher about Ashkenazim. Instead, he would just sit in the back of the shul, in the back seat, not making any limelight, not commanding any attention and respect. He made sure that he stayed humble in the back. But even though he had the back seat in the Beit Midrash, he made sure that his children would not sit in the back. He said, what? Children sitting by the back of the shul? Was that respect? Children should sit in the front of the shul. Why do children hang around the back of the shul? Children should have the front seats for the Aron Kodesh, to show how special Tinokot Shebet how children are. Not to sit in the back like troublemakers running out the door to play. And at that time, his little son Maimon used to play football during davening. But we didn't have a football in yeshiva. We used to pretend we had a football. The yeshiva had a mat, and we'd say hike, and you had to run to the back wall. And then we'd go on the lawn of the Tel Yeshiva, and we'd run in front of the lawn, which is in front of the yeshiva building. But we didn't know that there was these big light bulbs that were casting light on the Beit Midrash. And when we would run in front of the light, it made like 20-foot shadows, like children that were 20 feet tall, running across the walls of the windows of the Beit Midrash. We didn't know that, but the men used to come out and scream, stop it, stop it. You're distracting everyone. Your shadows are going by the windows, and you look like these big monsters, 25-foot monsters. But at that time, we didn't know. We were little kids. He'd always say, is that what you come to shul for? Is that what you come to play? And at that time, his musar, might not have been appreciated, but eventually his musar made us care more for tefillah. Eventually made us care so much that I started running a youth minyan myself to make sure that kids pray and not play. It turns out he was a man that, even though he worked so hard, he was a shochet, he was a sofer, he was a carpenter, he was a barber, he was a candyman, Talmid Chacham, he never would sleep too much on Shabbat. Even at 3 o'clock every Shabbat, every week 3 o'clock, he made sure to be up. Why did he make sure to be up at 3 o'clock? Because he felt it was B'dot Torah. How could I sleep past 3 o'clock? How could I go and sleep past 3 o'clock? I mean, how much sleep do I need? He would sleep a little bit, and then if afterwards he would get up and he'd strengthen himself to learn Torah without sleeping. A lot of people, they sleep a lot of time of their life away, so they waste half their life sleeping when they could have been doing mitzvot and especially learning Torah. Do you know that it's possible to get over 7 million mitzvot an hour? It's possible to get over 7 million mitzvot an hour if you don't waste that hour sleeping. You know what you do instead? If you learn an hour Torah, the Chafetz Chaim said you could say probably 200 words an hour, a minute. If you say 200 words of Torah a minute, that's how fast you speak when you talk, and then you learn Torah for a whole hour, so that's 12,000 mitzvot words of Torah you could say in an hour. Well, now, the Yerushalmi says that Torah is so great that every word of Torah is equal to all the other mitzvot put together. That means right now, a person who learns Torah can get more reward than everyone else doing mitzvot. More than the person who just did a Haftalah call, more than the Mohel who just did a Milah. And you know what? Each word of Torah is equal to 613 mitzvot. So what's 613 mitzvot times 12,000 words of Torah an hour? Over 7 million. So it's possible to get over 7 million mitzvot an hour if you don't sleep it away. So that's why Rev Avrohom would never sleep past 3 o'clock on Shabbat. He said it's enough. It's not so sleep. Every week, as tired as he was, 3 o'clock you could see him walking down the hall to start learning. It turns out, after many years, Rev Avrohom had a terrible disease in his eye, where his eye looked like a golf ball. His eye was so swollen, you would have thought that something was really wrong. There was pus leaking out of the eye. It was very ugly. And Rev Avrohom said that happened as a result of diabetes, a disease of sugar, when a person has too much sugar in his blood and his body. And it caused his eye to puff up like a golf ball. At that time, he went to a doctor, one of the best doctors in the world. His name was Dr. Gans. And Dr. Gans was a very respected doctor because he even worked on one of the American presidents. And luckily, Avrohom was able to get to the doctor. But the doctor was such a rasha, such a mean person, such a show-off. And he was Jewish. You can't say he's anti-Semite, but he was such a rasha that he told Avrohom, he said, "Hey, ain't gonna ever do anything for this eye." So Avrohom said, "But I came to one of the best doctors thinking that of course you can do some kind of surgery, perhaps laser surgery, perhaps some kind of medicine to take down the swelling to make me see." But at that time, the doctor was a rasha. Chazal say a lot of times the best doctors are going to go to Gehinnom. They go to Gehinnom because you know why? Because they think they're God. They think that the refuah is in their hands. They don't realize they're just Hashem's messenger to cure people. But here, he said, "Listen, Rabbi, there's no hope." My father said, "Can't you do laser surgery or something?" So listen, Rabbi, there's nothing to do. And my father knew this guy was a Jew. He thought he'd be nice to him. And here he said, "There's nothing to do." You know, such a mean doctor. At least he should try something. So my father said to him, "What should I do with my eye? Should I just leave it like it is?" So the doctor goes, "Rabbi, you could take out your eye and step on it." My brother was there, Eli. He said, "Well, he was so angry he wanted to punch the doctor in the head. That's how you talk to a sick patient that you tell him that's ill and he's not feeling well. You give him such just devastating words. Give him encouragement. Give him strength. What kind of bitter talk is that?" He was so angry, and right away they had to leave. And the doctor said, "Listen, there's nothing I can do." Right then, Rebbe Shapiro, Mashkiach of Tal Yeshiva, Reb Shom Shapiro, great Talmid Chacham in Tal, his wife was in Israel. She went to Abu Chatzera, to Baba Sali, and she told Baba Sali, she sent a message, "Rabbi, there's a sick person, it was in Tal, it was Avram Elbaz, he suffered from diabetes, he needs a refuah." Right then, Abu Chatzera took out a glass of water, filled it up from the sink, a little jug of water, said, "Hashem should make this water heal just like medicine heals. Just like medicine heals, this water should heal." And she brought it back from Israel. Rev Avrohom put some of the water on his eye. He made a bracha. He drank some of the water. Within a couple of days, his eye went perfectly back to normal, and he was able to see perfect. And this was amazing because before it even swelled up, he was colorblind. He couldn't tell the difference between green and red. I was once driving with him, and he goes, "Is it green?" And I said, "Yeah, Abba, go. It's green." He goes, "No, it's a red light." I said, "No, it's a green light." He goes, "Are you sure?" I said, "Of course I'm sure." He couldn't even tell that he was colorblind. And now, with this refuah that Abu Chatzera sent him, all of a sudden he was able to see perfect. And he went to the doctor to show him, "See, Baruch Hashem, I got better from a miracle working rabbi." And the doctor, he couldn't believe it. The doctor said to him, "I can't believe. Well, how'd you get cured here? What kind of medicine?" He said, "No, a rabbi gave me a blessing." When the Dr. Gans heard that, he said, "Wow, Rabbi, there is a God. There is a God. This kofar, that doctor that was a kofar, he denied Hashem and the Torah. Now he realized, look at the power of Torah, could do things that even medical science wasn't able to figure